Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein, Jeff Courier, and Royce Coop, where we break down the stories shaping our country.
Hi, I'm Kevin Klein. Welcome to Inside Politics. I am joined by two of my Winnipeg Sun colleagues. We have Royce Coop, who is also a professor of political sciences at the University of Manitoba, and Jeff Courier. Gentlemen, some news this week that shocked me. Number one, the NDP sending out a memorandum to their candidates, if you will, saying prepare for an early election. It was almost like they wanted to do that or get that out there. The second was seeing the latest poll showing that if Carney wins the Liberal leadership, that we again have a tight race for the Prime Minister and for the federal government.
Well, this is precisely why Jagmeet Singh is telling his folks get ready for an election, because if the polls hold, if they hold, and this is politics. Canada doesn't know Mark Carney yet. Really, Canada does not know Mark Carney except by name, and so once he gets out on the campaign trail and all that. However, if the polls do hold, there's a possibility of yet another minority government, and this is an opportunity for Jagmeet Singh to keep his job and to hold sway over power in Ottawa.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. What we've seen in the most recent poll is that the Liberals have rebounded, but the NDP is almost collapsing. I think in the last one they're at 12% support, and so that's kind of a territory where you're flirting with getting wiped out under the rules of the electoral system. He's going to need to see improvement if he's going to hold the balance of power in Parliament again. And if I was a New Democrat, I would be a little upset right now. How many months went by when the NDP could have defeated the Liberal Party? They could have brought an election when the Liberals were absolutely in the cellar in public opinion under the leadership of Justin Trudeau, and they didn't. He held on. He didn't defeat the government. And now it looks like that might have been a massive tactical error that Jagmeet Singh made. If I was a New Democrat, I would be pretty upset right now.
But are you shocked by the polls? I mean, I'm a little bit shocked. I'm not that shocked, I'll be honest, and I'll tell you why. Is I've always said that, the conservative plan was a one person attack. It was Trudeau, it was axe the tax, it was Trudeau, they're slogan driven. And now all of a sudden you don't have Trudeau and you have Carney and everybody else saying they're going to axe the tax as well. So I wasn't surprised by the poll. I guess the fact that it's so close, I was surprised by that. And I'm just wondering, are you as surprised as I am, or did you expect something like this to happen with a leadership change?
No, I think we talked about this in one of our earlier podcasts, that the two most unpopular things about the Liberal Party were Justin Trudeau and the carbon tax. So if you take those two most unpopular elements away, that kind of levels the playing field again, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you always think things are going to tighten up a little bit, but the extent to which they rebounded out now that Justin Trudeau is gone, I underestimated just how deeply unpopular Trudeau was. Like him announcing his resignation has given new life to the Liberal Party. It actually is quite shocking.
But is it warranted? Like, I
No,
mean, do
of
you
course
trust
not.
them? I mean,
No,
like,
no.
sorry, I sit back and I'm thinking, oh, we're patriotic, we're this, but sooner or later we got to give ourselves, give our head a shake too and say, look, are we really wanting to try this again under the Liberal government? Do we really think it's going to be any different?
Well, there's lots of Canadians that, or maybe not lots, there's a particular group of Canadians that want an excuse to not vote for the Conservative Party. They will in certain circumstances, but it doesn't take much to push them back to the Liberals. And, a lot of Conservatives right now are kind of freaked out about these poll results. I don't know. I mean, I think when I look at Carney, like how he's conducting himself in this leadership race, it's pretty clear to me he is pretty green extremely green as a politician. He makes little mistakes. This is a guy he's been in the public spotlight. He's had high profile roles. He's managed big organizations. That's all different from being in politics. And you know this, Kevin. Politics is something like until you're doing it, it's pretty hard to actually understand
Mhm.
what the job entails. Polyev has been a politician for
20,
20, yeah, like since the early 2000s. He's an MP. Carney is going to make mistakes. It's very similar to the Kim Campbell scenario in 1993. So, I don't think conservatives should be as worried as they are, to be honest.
I take it, Jeff, and maybe you'll back me up on this. And being in the media, I remember going back and thinking of all the polls we had done where you wanted to pick who was going to win the election. And 9 times out of 10, we were wrong. Polls
Well,
weren't always bang on. I mean, if you look at
no,
the polls
I
in
don't
the
think we were
recent
wrong. I don't think,
provincial election,
yeah, I don't think we were wrong that often, but
well, we were.
the polling can be off. Uh, polling can be off at times, and it depends on, as we all know in Canada, vote distribution is really what it's all about. I mean, you can theoretically in Canada, now I know it's more than a three-party system, but in the old three-party system, if you won 34% of the vote in every riding in Canada, you would win every seat in the House of Commons. I mean, that's so vote distribution is really what it's all about. And so, can Pierre Poilievre make inroads in Quebec? That's going to be a huge one come election time. Is Mark Carney going to be able to appeal to the 905 area and 705 in Southern Ontario? I mean, those things are unknown, and in fact, they're unknowable at this point.
Yeah, a concern for the Conservatives too. A lot of people don't know that in the last two federal elections, the Tories actually got more votes than the Liberals. But they got fewer seats, and the Liberals got to form a government. So Tories have to do better. They have to do better than the Liberals. Can't be a tie, or the Tories lose. I'm not really sure in terms of polling. It seems like we see a media consensus now that Mark Carney is going to win the leadership. I don't really know on what basis we've decided that. Like he's got more members of the Liberal caucus endorsing him, but I I'm not really sure that's true. It's very hard to know what is going on inside of that kind of closed party race in which anyone can join. You don't even have to pay to join the party anymore. I wouldn't totally bet on a Carney win in this. I'm still open to the possibility someone might be able to pull this, might be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat, particularly Freeland.
Well, I really find that the media is, overplaying this. Carney gets more coverage than anybody. It's not like they're at a consensus. It's almost like they're willing Carney to win. And it's the media again trying to play, a kingmaker, if you will, trying to say, okay, let's get Carney in, let's promote him because you're not seeing that much from any other. You're not seeing anything from Poilievre or any other politician for that matter. You're just seeing, Carney saying this, and Carney doing that, and Carney saying this. And I really think the media needs to back off. Like they need to get out of it because they can't be playing the game that they are in this election, especially for the leadership. Because you're right. I mean, anybody can join the Liberal Party
Yeah.
and vote. Doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, Chrystia Freeland's problem, of course, is that she's going to be forever tied to the Trudeau administration, even though there was a fracture at the end of her tenure there. She was Justin Trudeau's right hand uh, for many years, and so she's going to have to sell that to the rest of the party that no, I'm not just going to carry on the Justin Trudeau legacy that I've got my own agenda.
Well, here's my fear.
She's going to have to sell that.
Here's my fear, and I want to ask you both about this. My fear is that this election is going to become about Trump. We're going to miss all the more important things that we need to get done in this country. The things that we have been talking about. This is going to be solely about Trump and his tariffs and his antics, and we're going to make this campaign based on fighting against Trump as opposed to fighting for what the country needs. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I mean that memo that supposedly leaked from the NDP. I mean, I don't know if that was sort of a, a trick or if that's real. I could certainly see a scenario where someone like Carney becomes the leader of the party and then wants to move very quickly into an election campaign. There's dangers to that, very real dangers of throwing yourself brand new to politics, throwing yourself into a national election campaign. But it would allow him to basically campaign against Trump. To run almost exclusively on this issue. And we're seeing in the polls that Canadians are open to Carney as someone that is going to be competent. They see him as competent to deal with the threat of Trump and tariffs. So yeah, a very quick election. I that probably is a possibility.
Well, Carney can sell himself as a guy who knows how to manage the economy. Whether he can or not, I don't know, but he can sell himself that way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of frustrating. You're the governor of the Bank of Canada. Like that, the big difference between being the finance minister, being the prime minister. Like he was way back yonder. He was involved in discussions with Jim Flaherty and Stephen Harper, but he wasn't the one making the big decisions. I don't know if that's one part of the reason why people are charmed by him. They might end up being disappointed.
Well, I think, Jeff, you're right. I think a lot of people are charmed by the fact that he was Bank of the, governor of the Bank of Canada. I was going to say governor of Canada, governor of the Bank of Canada when, we went through the 2008 financial crisis, right? And they see him as being one of the people that led us through that as part of the Harper team, if you
Yeah.
will, and the
It was actually
financial
It was
guru.
really Jim Flaherty who did that.
Yeah.
That was his
Yeah,
magic.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
almost like Carney's getting all the credit for that and it's not due. Yeah, as you said, he was a public servant in essence, right? He kind of followed the lead of the government at that time, but he is getting credit for that. You can tell, and I mean, isn't that why he got the job in Britain to be the governor of their bank?
Yeah.
yeah. And I think most people, no one is going to say he did a horrible job. Even conservatives won't say that when he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. But to claim that he was the one steering the ship, that he was the one making the big decisions, that's just not true. He was advising, he was playing a role in that regard. But it was the government. It was Harper and Flaherty making the big decisions.
Do they have candidates ready, Jeff? Do you think all the parties have candidates ready to go?
Probably not yet. Probably not. I know that the Liberals have obviously had a lot of people say they're not going to run again.
Mhm.
The New Democrats will have to scramble to fill a lot of their spots as well. They've got financial concerns as well too. Of course, that they don't have any money to run a real high level federal campaign. So as you kind of implied earlier, Kevin, the NDP could get blown out of the water. And Royce, I think you mentioned this as well, that they could get decimated. And it was a missed opportunity, really, for Jagmeet Singh this past year when the Liberals were so low in the polls that by default, the NDP
Yeah.
could have picked up a lot of those votes and a lot of those seats in an early election. And I'm not suggesting necessarily that they'd wind up as the official opposition, but they could have been in a much more powerful position in Parliament than they are today, or than they will be.
Yeah.
My issue with this too is with Carney and the Liberal Party and a pending election coming up is that they're using Meta and other social media channels to get their message out. After they put in legislation to basically destroy Canadian media by not having news on Facebook, by not having news and sharing shareable news on Instagram or anything, and they turn around, the hypocrites that they are, and they start spending money on these social media platforms. It's just like the NDP in Manitoba spending money on social media platforms to promote buying Canadian. Well, why are I guess when I look at those polls, that again, I wasn't shocked, but it just bothers me, especially as a Canadian, to think, well, have we not learned our lesson? Look at what they're doing. They put in legislation. They're killing Canadian media. They're giving all their money to the CBC, and now they're giving money to the very people that they went after and put legislation in to destroy us. It's just I don't understand Canadian people. I don't understand how we're not. And I know it's going to be Ontario and Quebec, but really, Royce, you teach political science. Is there something wrong in the East that they're just not catching on? Is it something in the water? Do they have memory loss? Like, what is it that is stopping them from seeing the reality of what a liberal government has done?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Liberals going up in the polls, it's kind of like the lyrics of a Taylor Swift song. The girl going back to the lying, cheating boyfriend that she dumped. It's always disappointing to see. But yeah, I mean, the Liberal Party has support. And the Conservative Party is Polyev has had to kind of walk a certain line, keeping support from his own base versus expanding. And he's done a good job of that. That's a lot easier when Justin Trudeau was leader. But it's a tough role. There's always going to be people that are just not going to vote for the Conservative Party now. It's not, the way it was in the 70s and the 80s where Liberals and PCs were kind of interchangeable. Now we have real choices, and some people they're never going to vote for the Conservative Party no matter what the Liberal Party does. And man, do they do things to alienate people. But that's just the way it is, I think, in Canada now.
We would like being punished. So we'll put the Liberal government in again. That's great. That's a great way to go. Thank you very much. We'll end it though. Let's say, I'd like predictions. We've had predictions before. I don't know. I didn't keep track of our records, but do you think we'll have a quick election after the leadership race? You don't think Carney's going to win. You think something might happen, Royce, but do you think no matter who wins, do you think it'll be a quick election, or are they going to take the time to establish themselves, get rid of the carbon tax and do a few other things and use the Trump, chaos to not call an election?
And politics is it's all about timing, and you don't get to choose your opportunities. And if Carney has got kind of a daring streak in him, he could take the plunge very quickly. I think it's maybe better to wait, but what do I know? I could see either way, it happening either way.
Yeah, and if Jagmeet Singh is supportive of the carbon tax, which all indications are he is, and Mark Carney or whoever takes over, whether it's Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney, either one of those frontrunners has said, yeah, we'll probably get rid of the carbon tax, then Jagmeet Singh is ethically compelled to bring the government down.
But wasn't he ethically compelled for the last year?
Well, you can make that argument, but this is not a small issue. The carbon tax is a major issue in Canada, and if the next leader of the Liberal Party says we're going to get rid of this carbon tax, he has to stand up and say we believe in the carbon tax, we think it should stay, and if the Liberal government says they're going to get rid of it. Now, his problem is that no matter who wins the next election, the carbon tax is going to be gone, whether it's the Liberals or Conservatives, if they are all to be believed. And this, you always have to put that little asterisk there. If they're all to be believed, Singh has really very few options at this point. I think Royce's point earlier was right, that his opportunity has come and gone.
Just quickly on the carbon tax. Let's be honest, though. They can get rid of the carbon tax. They're just going to put it somewhere else, right?
Well, yes.
I mean, they're going to make it a manufacturing tax. We'll still get hit with it. Right. We just won't see it on the receipt.
Yeah, right. So what do we replace it with? Because most Canadians are concerned with, we want clean air, we want clean water, we are concerned about climate change, but we're not prepared to cripple ourselves in order to solve the problem. So how can we as a country move forward and take some necessary steps other than a carbon tax, which, whether they agree to it or admit to it or not, is in fact a tax on everything. Mm-hmm. And so how do we stop beating Canadians up in the name of Justin Trudeau's global vision?
Yeah, and that's what it's about, is just beating people up. There's good ways to tax and bad ways to tax, and the carbon tax is a horrible way. It hurt working people. It punished certain people over others. I'm happy to see that it's on the way out, and if it's replaced by a more equitable, effective tax, then that's fine. I'd prefer that if it wasn't, but I'd rather see that than a regressive, horrible tax that hurts working people.
Well, Royce, if the carbon tax had worked, the Liberal Party would be showing us the results. They would be showing us the figures about how Canada's carbon footprint is being reduced. There's no evidence to suggest for 1 minute that this carbon tax has achieved the desired result.
Agreed. No evidence at all. But but also with let's be honest. Look at what's happening with the threat of the United States and all this kind of stuff. We're taxed to death, Royce. I don't think you can bring in another tax. I think this is a time to start saying, okay, we've got to cut government spending. We can't just go out and replace that revenue. We've got to learn to live without that revenue and start cutting our spending and start focusing on what's important for the country and start shipping minerals out and making our money off that. We can't have another tax. If you're going to axe the tax, if they're going to get rid of the carbon tax, it has to go, and it cannot be replaced.
Well, it really shouldn't be replaced because, of course, the argument is that it was revenue neutral, that they gave all that money back in the form of rebates, which is pretty contested. But yeah, and given the current threats, we need to look at those sorts of things. Competitiveness issues and tax rates are a big part of that. My only point is that, look, if you're going to tax, if any politicians are listening, there's good taxes and bad taxes. Carbon taxes are horrible taxes, and we can do better in that respect.
Final word, Jeff?
No, I agree with Royce. It is a bad tax. Canada's deficit now at $1.4 trillion, reducing government spending is critical. Under the Trudeau administration and Chrystia Freeland, finance minister, a balanced federal budget is still many, many years away. I think we need to accelerate that pace. We're spending over $45 billion of Canadians' money every year to service our national debt. $45 billion a year.
Wow.
How many national dental plans could you buy for $45 billion a year?
Imagine what our military could do with $45 billion a year.
Okay. So now we know that there's always going to be some national debt. However, it's out of control, absolutely wildly out of control. Your unborn grandchildren are going to be paying off the debt that this government has racked up.